Hi there, third graders. Welcome back. Today we're going to read our next chapter of the Hoboken Chicken Emergency. So last time when we left off, Henrietta had gotten in quite a lot of trouble. She got stuck up a tree, and all of the police officers and the fire officers, the fighters, all thought that she was a polar bear, and it took Arthur quite a long time to actually convince them that she was a chicken, not a polar bear. But finally he did, so he got her down the ladder, and they were off for home. So we're going to start reading from there. Chapter 4. It wasn't Henrietta's fault that dumb Bozo had scared her. It wasn't her fault that she didn't know how to get down from a tree. And leaning on the banister in the hallway and breaking it really wasn't her fault. It had been loose for years. Arthur's father could have sued the landlord if she had gotten hurt. Another thing that was not Henrietta's fault was eating the goldfish. She didn't know any better. Arthur had kept his part of the deal. He had taken Henrietta for walks. He had fed her. Now Papa had told Arthur to take the chicken back to where he got her. It wasn't fair. The picture in the newspaper, of which Arthur was very proud, seemed to have the opposite effect on Papa. Papa was hard to argue with once he made up his mind. Arthur had to take Henrietta back. That was all there was to it. Papa said that an apartment was no place to keep a grown chicken, especially one that weighed 266 pounds. Arthur rang the bell and went up the stairs to Professor Musachi's apartment. He was leading Henrietta. "So, it's you," Professor Musashi said. "I told you no refunds, didn't I?" "I didn't come for a refund," Arthur said. "My father says I can't keep Henrietta. He says I have to give her back. He says you don't have to give back the money. I'm just not supposed to come home until I've gotten rid of her." Arthur was almost crying. "So, you didn't want to eat her," Professor Musashi said. "I can understand that. Number 73 is a very pleasant bird. I never eat chicken myself. In fact, I never eat meat, fish, or fowl. Nothing but bird seed and water do I eat for the past 60 years and more." That's pretty strange. "Will you take Henrietta back?" Arthur asked. His nose was running and he was beginning to cry. "Yes, my boy, I'll take her back. But you are so sad to think of leaving your nice chicken. Won't you come in? Maybe I can find some other pet to take her place." "I don't want another pet," Arthur said. "I want them to let me keep Henrietta." He was crying for sure now. "Come in and have a look around anyway," Professor Musashi said. "Maybe you'll see something interesting." The professor opened the door to his apartment and led Arthur and Henrietta inside. Arthur had never seen anything like Professor Musashi's apartment. There were a lot of big rooms, all of them full of cages, tanks, crates, and baskets. So many animals were clucking and screeching and howling and chattering that Arthur couldn't tell one sound from the next. It was just big, one continuous noise. There were quite a lot of chickens, some bigger than Henrietta. Arthur didn't think any of them were as pretty as Henrietta. There were glass tanks with red and blue lizards, cages with birds of every color, and big fish tanks. And there's a picture of Professor Musashi. He looks pretty strange, doesn't he? "Here's something that I'm proud of," Professor Musashi said. He pointed to a very large fish tank. Swimming in it were a number of goldfish, large ones, and they were perfectly rectangular. They looked like golden bricks with tails and fins. "What are those?" Arthur asked. "Ah, you're interested in my rectangular goldfish?" Professor Musashi seemed proud. "I'll give you a couple to take the place of your chicken, but I must warn you, they lose their corners after a couple of years." "I've never seen anything like them," Arthur said. "Where did they come from?" "Where? Here," said Professor Musashi. "I raised them myself. If you promise not to tell anyone, I'll explain how it's done." Arthur promised. "Did you know that a goldfish will grow according to the size of the tank he is kept in?" Professor Musashi asked. Arthur had not known that. Oh yes, the baby goldfish you buy in the store, if kept in a bathtub, will grow very large indeed. Of course, it takes time, but it will grow. If you had a big lake to keep it in, and nothing unpleasant happened to it, that little baby goldfish might get to be 5 feet long in 10 to 15 years. However, if you keep the little baby goldfish in a little baby fish bowl, it will remain a little baby goldfish all its life. Arthur was fascinated. He made a mental note to keep some goldfish in a bathtub sometime and see how big they'd get. But how do you get a squared off goldfish? He asked. Of course, my secret. I do this. I put the little baby goldfish in a medium-sized tank. All around the tank, I put beautiful paintings of the bottom of a lake. The little baby goldfish is very stupid. He doesn't know they are only pictures. Also, when he bumps into the glass walls of his tank, he can't understand that it's glass, so he forgets about it. Fish do not like to think about things they can't understand. So, thinking the tank is as big as a lake, the goldfish begins to grow. He gets so big that his sides are touching the walls of his tank. Soon he grows to fill the corners. To make the top of the fish flat, I turn him over every so often. Presto, a square fish. The only thing I have to watch out for is that the fish will displace all the water in its tank and suffocate. When the fish is nice and square, I put him in a nice big tank with other nice fishes, and he is very happy. But why do you want them to be square? Arthur asked. Why? Why? Because they are easy to stack when they are that shape, you silly boy, Professor Musashi shouted. With goldfish, it doesn't matter, I think. But think, if sardines, if tuna fish, if herring were rectangular, just how easy would it be to transport them? Just freeze them and stack them in a train. No wasted space. The professor offered Arthur a pair of his rectangular goldfish. He offered him a red and blue lizard. He said he was working toward a red, white, and blue one. All he had been able to breed so far were red and blue, red and white and blue. Arthur was interested in the goldfish and the brightly colored lizards, but he didn't want to take any of the animals that Professor Musashi offered him. He felt it would be disloyal to Henrietta. Besides, you can love a 266-pound chicken. How could you love a square goldfish? Arthur even turned down a special experiment of Professor Musashi's, a bat crossed with a mushroom. Somehow, being around the professor's apartment, which would have interested Arthur ordinarily, just made him feel sad. The professor was being very nice and trying to make up for his having to give up Henrietta, but it didn't help at all. Finally, Arthur said goodbye to the professor, hugged Henrietta, and went out into the cold street. And that's where we're going to leave it for today. Poor Arthur is feeling so sad about Henrietta. We'll have to see what happens next time.